Ladies and gentlemen, the strongest voice in the room isn't always the loudest one. Sometimes it's the one that says nothing at all. In a world where everyone's racing to respond, prove and defend, there's a secret power hidden in silence. Because the moment you learn when not to speak, when anger burns, when rumors spread, when chaos surrounds, that's the moment you stop reacting and start mastering life. Stay with me because once you understand the power of silence, no one will ever be able to disturb your peace again. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than words. We often feel the urge to react, to prove, to defend or to express, but wisdom is knowing when to stay quiet. Silence doesn't mean weakness, it means mastery over one's emotions. There are 5 such moments where silence becomes your greatest strength. The first is when you are angry. When anger takes over, logic disappears. Words spoken in anger are like arrows shot from a bow. They can never be taken back. In moments of fury, the tongue becomes a sword, and we end up wounding those we care about. The wise don't speak when their emotions are louder than their thoughts. In that heated moment, be silent. Let the storm within you settle, because silence in anger saves relationships and protects your peace. The second is when others are speaking ill of you. You don't need to defend yourself against every false story or rumor. Let your actions do the talking. The truth doesn't need noise, it shines on its own. Responding to every critic is like throwing stones at every barking dog on the street. You'll never reach your destination. Be silent, keep walking. Those who judge will eventually see your truth through your consistency, not your arguments. The third is when you don't have complete knowledge of a situation. Many people speak first and think later, but wisdom begins with humility. The humility to say, I don't know. When we speak without understanding, we spread confusion instead of clarity. Silence allows you to listen, to observe, and to learn. Knowledge enters only when the mouth closes and the mind opens. So, when you're unsure, remain silent. It's not ignorance, it's intelligence waiting to mature. The fourth is when you're surrounded by negativity. Some people thrive on complaining, gossiping, or blaming. Engaging in that energy drains your peace and dims your inner light. Don't let their darkness steal your calm. Silence in negativity is not avoidance, it's self-protection. Walk away quietly. You don't owe everyone your energy. Preserve your positivity by choosing silence over argument. And the fifth, when your words won't bring value, we often speak to fill the silence, not to add meaning. But not every moment needs commentary. Sometimes just being present, listening, understanding, and empathizing is far more powerful than speaking. Silence can heal, connect, and strengthen bonds far more than hollow words ever could. Silence is not emptiness, it's full of power, awareness, and depth. It is the space where thoughts mature before turning into words. Every time you choose silence in these situations, you are not losing the argument, you are winning your inner battle. Remember, a calm mind doesn't need to prove its strength, it simply knows it. Silence is not the absence of words, it's the presence of wisdom. When you start practicing silence, you begin to notice something incredible. Life starts responding differently to you. You stop being reactive and you start becoming reflective. You begin to observe how your peace of mind no longer depends on how people treat you, but on how you choose to respond. Silence becomes your inner sanctuary, a sacred space where you meet yourself before meeting the world. Most people think silence is doing nothing, but silence is doing everything that matters. It's the pause between two thoughts that gives birth to clarity. It's the gap between emotions that helps you choose your response wisely. It's the space between chaos and calm where your true strength resides. In silence, you begin to understand that the loudest voice in the room isn't always the wisest. Sometimes the one who listens changes everything. Think about it. When was the last time you truly listened, not to reply, but to understand? The art of silence teaches you to listen not just to others, but also to life itself. You begin to hear the language of patience, the whispers of intuition, and the gentle reminders of conscience. Every time you practice silence, you make room for wisdom to enter. Words can inform, but silence transforms. When someone insults you or misunderstands you, silence gives you the grace to rise above the situation. You stop being a prisoner of others' opinions. Silence teaches you that not every question deserves an answer, and not every comment needs a response. Some things are better answered by time, and silence is the language of time. People may forget your words, but they will never forget the dignity of your calm. When you stay silent during anger, the mind becomes your servant rather than your master. When you stay silent amid gossip, your energy is preserved for greater things. When you stay silent in confusion, understanding finds its way to you. And when you stay silent when words have no value, you create an aura of depth that words can never describe. That is the beauty of choosing silence. It turns ordinary moments into lessons of wisdom. In a world that glorifies noise, silence is rebellion. Everyone wants to speak, few want to listen. Everyone wants to be heard, few want to understand. But those who master silence rise above the chaos of opinions and find serenity in their stillness. They influence not through argument but through presence. They inspire not through volume but through vibration. Silence also strengthens relationships. Sometimes when a loved one is upset or hurting, you don't need to offer advice or explanations. You just need to be there quietly holding space. Silence becomes compassion, a language that only the heart can speak. In those moments, your silence says, I'm here, I understand, I care. Words can be limited, but silence has depth. Even in your personal growth, silence plays a sacred role. When you take time to disconnect from the outer world, from social media, from opinions, from noise, and sit quietly with yourself, you begin to rediscover who you truly are. In that stillness, clarity blooms. You start realizing what really matters and what doesn't. The voice of your purpose becomes clearer, and the distractions of the world fade away. Silence becomes your compass, guiding you toward your higher self. Silence also teaches emotional intelligence. It helps you respond rather than react. It gives you the wisdom to differentiate between ego and truth, between momentary emotion and lasting peace. When you choose silence, you're not avoiding life, you're aligning with it. You begin to see that every reaction is optional, and peace is always available if you choose it. The power of silence lies in its subtlety. It's gentle yet unshakable. It doesn't need validation, yet it commands respect. It doesn't demand attention, yet it captures hearts. Every time you remain silent in these 5 situations, you plant seeds of strength within yourself. Seeds that grow into patience, clarity, and grace. Over time, you realize that silence doesn't just protect your peace, it shapes your character. There is a kind of power that comes not from shouting louder, but from standing calmer. The one who can stay silent in chaos is the one who truly understands control. In silence, you meet the real you. Not the one the world sees, but the one who observes, who understands, who grows. That is where true peace begins, not outside but within. Silence begins to transform you in ways you didn't even expect. It refines your personality, purifies your thoughts, and polishes your perspective. You begin to notice how unnecessary words once drained your energy, how impulsive reactions once disturbed your balance, and how constant talking once clouded your wisdom. Silence clears the fog, it sharpens your awareness. You start to see how calmness becomes your greatest superpower in a world where everyone is shouting to be heard. There's a certain beauty in being unbothered, not because you don't care, but because you've learned to protect your peace. Silence doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you start understanding your emotions at a deeper level. When you're silent, you begin to feel your anger before expressing it, your sadness before explaining it, and your joy before announcing it. That awareness changes everything. It makes you grounded, centered, and composed even when life throws storms your way. In silence, you stop fighting for control and start flowing with acceptance. You realize not every battle is yours to fight, not every opinion is yours to correct, and not every misunderstanding needs clarification. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Life has its own timing for revealing truth, and silence is your way of trusting that timing. The calm ones are not the weak ones, they're the ones who've learned that peace is far more valuable than being right. When you practice silence, you also develop patience, the rarest virtue in today's fast-paced world. Everyone wants instant answers, instant results, instant validation, but silence teaches you to wait with faith. It shows you that just because nothing is happening on the surface doesn't mean growth isn't taking place within. Like a seed buried in soil, your inner transformation happens quietly. Silence nurtures it, patience strengthens it, and in time your calmness blossoms into wisdom. Silence also elevates your energy. Have you noticed how drained you feel after unnecessary conversations or arguments? Words carry vibration, and when they're misused, they drain your spiritual battery. But when you choose silence, you conserve that power. You begin to vibrate at a higher frequency, calm, focused, and intentional. People start noticing a change in you. They may not understand it, but they'll feel it. Because true power doesn't shout, it radiates. Silence helps you connect with your purpose. In the stillness of your mind, you start hearing the gentle whisper of your calling. You start recognizing what aligns with your soul and what distracts you. Every moment of silence becomes a moment of alignment. You learn that productivity is not just about doing more, but about being more aware, more grateful, more mindful. When you silence the noise of the world, your inner voice becomes your guide. Sometimes silence even saves you from regrets. Many people spend years wishing they hadn't said certain things in moments of frustration, but silence saves you from that pain. It gives you time to think, to breathe, to reflect. It's the invisible pause that prevents irreversible damage. When you hold back a harsh word, you protect not only others' hearts but your own peace of mind. That's the quiet wisdom silence gives you. The ability to think before you speak and to feel before you act. Silence also deepens your connection with the divine. When you stop talking and start listening, you begin to sense a quiet presence guiding you. In that stillness, prayers turn into peace, and peace turns into strength. You realize that silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of something sacred. You start carrying that stillness into your daily life, in your work, your relationships, and even your challenges. When you cultivate silence, you no longer need to prove your worth through words. You become confident in your calmness. You walk into a room and your energy speaks for you. You face challenges and your composure becomes your answer. You engage with people and your peace becomes your message. Silence becomes your signature, quiet yet powerful, humble yet unshakable. Over time, you learn that the strongest people aren't the ones who speak the most, they are the ones who understand when silence is more meaningful. And in that realization, you discover that silence is not emptiness, it's fullness. It's filled with wisdom, grace, patience, and inner power. The one who learns to be silent in the right moments learns to master life itself. As you continue to live with this awareness, silence becomes more than just a practice. It becomes a lifestyle. You begin to realize that not every moment needs noise to have meaning. The most profound experiences often happen in quiet spaces, the silence of early mornings, the stillness after prayer, the calm after a storm. In those moments, you start to see life not as something to be conquered, but something to be understood. You start to appreciate the beauty of pauses, the value of reflection, and the depth of simplicity. Silence also becomes your teacher in relationships. When someone disagrees with you or behaves harshly, your first instinct might be to respond, to defend, or to correct. But silence teaches you something deeper. That understanding often grows in the soil of calmness, not conflict. When you pause before reacting, you give space for empathy to enter. You begin to see the pain behind another person's anger, the insecurity behind their harsh words, the fear behind their arrogance. Silence allows compassion to replace confrontation. It helps you connect from heart to heart, not ego to ego. There's a quiet strength that builds when you can remain calm even when misunderstood. The world may not always understand your silence, but that doesn't matter. You're not silent for them, you're silent for yourself. You're protecting your peace, your dignity, your spiritual energy. The truth is, silence is a response too, a response that says, I value my inner peace more than winning this argument. It takes real courage to choose calmness when chaos invites you to react. Silence also brings creativity. When your mind is quiet, your imagination wakes up. Ideas begin to flow like a gentle stream and solutions appear effortlessly. In stillness, you connect to the infinite intelligence within you. That's why some of the greatest ideas in the world were born not in noise, but in solitude. Silence helps you listen to the creative whispers of your soul, the ones drowned out by constant distraction. When you allow space for silence, life starts speaking to you in ways words never could. Even in leadership, silence is a mark of true wisdom. Great leaders know that every voice deserves to be heard, and sometimes the best way to lead is to listen. Silence helps you observe what others miss, the tone behind the words, the emotion behind the action, the truth behind the facade. In moments of silence, you develop the clarity to make better decisions, not from impulse but from insight. The ability to stay calm under pressure becomes your greatest influence. When you make silence your companion, you begin to walk through life differently. You stop rushing, you stop forcing outcomes, you start trusting the process. You understand that some answers reveal themselves only when you stop asking and start observing. You realize that silence is not about avoiding communication, it's about elevating it. Every word that follows silence carries more weight, more meaning, and more truth. Silence also strengthens your self-discipline. It trains your mind to resist the temptation to react instantly. It teaches you to pause before making decisions, to think before responding, and to act from understanding rather than emotion. This simple pause, this moment of silence, becomes your secret weapon for emotional balance. It keeps you from saying things you'll regret and doing things you'll later question. It builds a quiet confidence that no chaos can shake. Over time, silence becomes your inner home, a place you can return to no matter what's happening around you. When life feels noisy, you retreat inward and find that peaceful space that belongs only to you. No external situation can disturb you there. Silence gives you that power, the ability to stay still even when the world around you trembles. And as this practice deepens, you start to radiate calmness. People will feel peace in your presence, even without words. They'll sense something different, a quiet strength, a grounded energy, a gentle authority. That's the silent influence of one who has mastered inner balance. You won't need to tell people you're at peace, they'll feel it. Silence will speak for you more powerfully than any speech ever could.